My daughter-in-law always smiled sweetly, acted like the perfect angel, and thought I was just an old lady past her prime. What she forgot was this: I spent 30 years selling at flea markets, rain or shine. And let me tell you, I've seen more fake faces than I've sold tomatoes. That overly sweet tone, the helpful hands, the let me take care of you, mom act. I've seen it all. People like her used to bargain with me in the morning and try to scam me by noon. I didn't survive 3 decades of street sales by being naive. So when I realized she was trying to take my house and push me out quietly, I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I watched. I smiled. And then I gave her a surprise she won't forget till the day she dies. This isn't just a mother-in-law versus daughter-in-law drama. It's a story about experience versus manipulation, patience versus pretension. A little reminder that you should never underestimate a woman who's dealt with more lies than most lawyers. Grab a cup of tea. Let me tell you what happened. If you're watching this video, please like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments where you're listening from. I'd be so happy to connect with you. I am Helen Walker, 68 years old. People often label me a widow, but to be honest, that word feels unbearably heavy to me. It conjures up the image of an old woman sitting by the window, handkerchief in hand to wipe her tears, whispering the name of her late husband. I'm different. I prefer to call myself a free person with plenty of spare time. It sounds neat, classy, and no one can question it. For 30 years, I sold goods at the Main Street Market. At first, it was just a tiny stall with a few packs of chewing gum, tissues, and a couple of soda bottles. Then I expanded to pots, pans, clothes, everything you could think of. People used to say, selling is tough. Helen, I nodded. Yes, tough indeed. But at least I'm not sitting idle and bored. Each day I meet 100 kinds of people, enough material to write a thick novel. Selling taught me many things. It taught me patience, diligence, and more importantly, how to read people. Not that I was especially talented, but over the years I noticed genuine buyers had bright eyes and firm hands clutching their money. Pretenders had shifty eyes and hesitant hands. To be fair, maybe I just paid too much attention to small details. There were folks who bargained so hard, claiming they had no money left in their pockets. Yet a shiny gold ring gleamed on their fingers. I would just point at the ring and say, "Sir, that ring could buy my entire stall." And you say you're broke? Then the customer would laugh awkwardly, pull out their wallet, and pay. And I, of course, would earn another story to tell in my spare time. Michael, my son, took a different path. He didn't continue my trade but chose to work in a company. The boy is talented, and I'm proud. He works as a manager, busy all day, gone from morning till late. And recently he's been flying off for business trips nonstop. One time he told me, "Mom, my boss is watching closely. If I do well on this project, I'll have a chance for a promotion, maybe even a raise." I felt both glad and worried. Glad because my son was being recognized. Worried because I knew he would no longer have any free time for his aging mother. Then one day, he called. His voice was a little rushed, but still gentle. "Mom, Vanessa," and I talked it over. "I'll be so busy soon, traveling constantly for work. We thought about moving in with you. That way, we can take care of you, and the house will feel more lively. What do you think?" I laughed. "Sure, come back. This house is big, and for too long it's only had the hum of the fridge. It'll be nice to have voices around again." That's what I said, though deep inside I was doubtful. Who in their right mind leaves a modern city apartment, fully equipped, to squeeze in with a nearly 70-year-old woman? But I didn't say it. Selling taught me this: let people speak. You just listen, and the truth will reveal itself. The day they moved in, I stood on the porch. Michael, suitcase in hand, had the other hand glued to his phone, nodding as he walked. "Yes, sir. I'll send the report tomorrow." When he saw me, He smiled. Mom, it's been a long time since the house felt so full of life. I shrugged. Well, noise is still better than just listening to the fridge. Vanessa was different. As soon as she walked in, she hugged me tightly and kissed my cheek. Mom, I missed you so much. I can only feel at ease if I stay here to take care of you. I put on a stern face and frowned. My dear, I can still chew on my own. No one needs to spoon-feed me porridge just yet. Vanessa giggled and gave my arm a light tap. Oh, Mom, you're always joking. In no time, she rolled up her sleeves to tidy up. She wiped the table, washed the curtains, and bought a vase of yellow chrysanthemums to place by the window. Michael watched through a video call from the airport, smiling brightly. See, Mom, my wife is so thoughtful. I nodded. Yes, very thoughtful indeed. But if she keeps cleaning like this, I'll have to hand out numbers like in the supermarket. Michael burst out laughing, while Vanessa forced a faint smile. That evening, Vanessa cooked a lavish meal. Honey roasted chicken, mashed potatoes, strawberry salad, and pudding for dessert. I looked at the table and exclaimed, "Oh my, if you cook like this, I won't dare braise fish anymore. My fish will stink, and all the guests will run away." Vanessa blushed but kept her sweet tone. "Oh, Mom, I only want to nourish you." Hands on my hips, I raised my voice. "Yes, nourishing is good, but if you feed me like this, in a few months I won't be able to walk, I'll have to roll." The whole table burst out laughing. Michael ate while texting his boss intently. Vanessa laughed too, though the corners of her lips tightened for a moment. After dinner, I sat in the rocking chair, listening to the tick-tock of the pendulum clock. Vanessa said gently, "Mom, go rest early. I'll clean up and lock the doors." I nodded, pretending to obey, but I was used to it already. A seller's life taught me to stay up late and wake up early, not to fall asleep at 10:00 single quotes clock. Around 11, I got up for a glass of water. Stepping into the living room, I heard a whisper. It was Vanessa's voice. I stopped, cup in hand. "Don't worry," she said softly but clearly over the phone. "She isn't as difficult as you think. It's only a matter of time." I curled my lips into a smile and whispered to myself, "Well, my girl, I've been selling for 30 years. Whoever thinks I'm easy will soon find things much harder." I poured the water, drank slowly, then went back to my room. The first night, and I knew the game had only just begun. If there were an award for the dutiful wife and filial daughter-in-law, I swear Vanessa would be nominated in the very first week she moved in. Her performance was so smooth, I had to admit. If I hadn't spent 30 years selling at the market, I might have nodded along and believed her. But poor Vanessa, unlucky for her. I'm used to reading all kinds of customer faces. Everyone claims to be sincere, but with just a blink, a glance, I can tell what they're really thinking inside. On the second evening after moving in, Vanessa laid out another lavish meal, no less than the first. But this time, instead of focusing only on cooking, she propped her phone up right in the middle of the table for a video call with Michael. My son was still away on a business trip, sitting in some fancy hotel room, his tie a little crooked, face looking tired but glowing. "Look at this," Vanessa beamed, turning the camera across the whole table. "Mom and I cooked dinner for the family. Doesn't it look delicious?" I sat beside her, narrowing my eyes. To be more precise, she did the cooking. I had only sliced a few cucumbers as a token effort. Yet in the video, Vanessa slyly slipped in. "See, Mom even helped me cut the veggies." The whole family gathered, just like the old days. Michael looked at the screen, smiling with pride. "Wonderful. My wife really is number one. Mom, eat up and take care of your health." I only nodded, spooning up some hot soup. Inside, I chuckled. "Oh, number one. All right, but number one in acting, that's the truth." That day, my daughter Claire also dropped by for dinner. She sat quietly, observing. Her eyes could not hide her discomfort as Vanessa bustled around, arranging dishes while chattering about her efforts. I knew Claire's nature. She's blunt. She can't stand pretension. I nudged her foot under the table, a reminder to keep calm. Selling taught me this. Let the customer talk, and they'll reveal their own flaws. While everyone was chatting, I slowly tasted a piece of chicken, then casually dropped a remark. This dish is really tasty. Too bad it doesn't suit a market seller like me. Chicken that isn't tough. It feels too fancy. I'm not used to chewing it. The whole table laughed. Michael, from the other end of the line, chuckled too. Mom, you always know how to crack a joke. Vanessa forced a smile, then quickly added, Oh Mom, I'll make more rustic dishes for you, so you won't miss the old flavors. I nodded, my tone calm and even. All right, but don't put in too much salt. Old folks get high blood pressure easily. I used to sell sacks of salt a day. Just looking at it makes me thirsty. Claire, sitting beside me, chuckled softly. She knew I was being sarcastic, but Vanessa acted as if she didn't understand, continuing to chatter endlessly with Michael. Throughout the whole meal, Vanessa kept waving the camera around, showing off the salad, then the pudding. Michael listened attentively, nodding in approval, completely oblivious to Claire's frown. Watching them, I sighed. My son might be brilliant at work, but when it comes to family matters, he's blind as a bat. After dinner, I carried the dishes into the kitchen. Vanessa followed quickly, washing with a bright smile. Mom, I feel so happy with the whole family like this. Michael must be delighted. I helped dry the plates, my lips curling slightly. Yes, as long as it's real happiness, not the kind you see in a laundry detergent commercial. Vanessa froze for a second, then forced a smile. In the kitchen light, I caught a glimpse of her face, her smile glued on like a mask. That night, when everyone else had gone upstairs, I stayed behind to finish tidying. Old habits from the market. I always checked everything one last time, from windows to switches, and even the trash. I never understood why people dislike going through garbage. To me, trash often reveals more than a person's words. And sure enough, in that day's trash bag, I found a crumpled pack of photocopied papers. I pulled them out, my heart beat steady but heavy. On the very first page, my name was printed in bold. Helen Walker. I narrowed my eyes, smoothing the sheet flat. The text wasn't fully clear, cut off photocopies, but I recognized a few words. Transfer, owner, and a signature that looked disturbingly familiar. I drew in a deep breath. No need for far-fetched imagination. I knew one thing for certain. Someone was scheming with my house, and I didn't need to guess who. I shoved the papers back into the trash, covered them with vegetable scraps, and walked straight upstairs. Under my breath, I muttered a sarcastic quip to myself. Yes, the meal was delicious, but it seems tonight's appetizer was just a pile of papers in the trash. I climbed into bed, pulled the blanket over me, and closed my eyes. But inside, my mind lit up like a night market. If Vanessa thought I could be tricked easily, she had forgotten one thing. I'd spent 30 years selling, and I had never once lost a bargain. There's one thing I learned after 30 years of selling. If you want to see who someone really is, don't look at them smiling in the daylight. Watch them when they think no one is observing. People are great actors, especially when there's an audience. But the moment they believe the curtain has fallen, that's when the truth comes out. That night, after finding the stack of photocopied papers in the trash, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, eyes wide open, ears picking up every creak of the house. I've lived here for over 40 years. I know every hinge, every stair that groans. So when I heard the front door open softly, I knew at once. I slipped downstairs, hiding behind the curtain by the window. The crescent moon cast just enough light across the yard for me to see Vanessa. She wore a thin coat, her hair tied up, and walked briskly toward the gate. At the gate stood a man waiting, He leaned against the lamppost, tall, thin, a cap pulled low to hide half his face. I couldn't see his features clearly, but he had the look of a city man, the kind I'd seen countless times back at the market, tagging along with regulars to try some sort of group bargaining. I pulled the curtain open a little more. The night wind slipped in, icy cold, but I stayed still. Vanessa approached, and the man bent slightly toward her. They exchanged a few whispered words. I didn't catch most of it, but one line reached me clearly. "Wait a little longer, she'll be out of the way soon." I shivered, not out of fear, but out of recognition. Very familiar. I remembered the market days, the way shady dealers would huddle together, whispering the exact same way. Never direct, always suggestive. "Wait a bit. That lady will slip up. Then we take it." Or, "Slow down. She won't hold out for long." That tone, that cadence, I'd heard it 1,000 times. The only difference was, back then their target was a few bundles of goods. Now, the target was me. I bit my lip and let out a dry laugh. So this is life. As a vendor, I got bargained down. As a mother-in-law, I'm being schemed against. Turns out, at any age, you still have to keep your eyes wide open. The man pulled an envelope from his coat pocket. The lamplight was faint, but enough for me to see the pale yellow paper. Vanessa glanced quickly around, then took it, tucking it firmly under her coat sleeve. The movement was swift, practiced. Instantly, I was reminded of market thieves slipping stolen food under their coats, exactly the same. I narrowed my eyes, straining to see more. Vanessa gave a soft laugh, looking up at the man, her eyes glinting strangely in the dark. They weren't just discussing paperwork. I could feel it in my gut that envelope had something to do with the name Helen Walker. I had seen printed in bold on those papers yesterday. I was about to close the curtain, but stopped myself. I wanted to see more. The man placed a hand lightly on Vanessa's shoulder, leaned in, and murmured something. Vanessa let out a short laugh, sharp, hollow, like the clink of a spoon against a glass. Bright, but empty. I stepped back, my heartbeat steady, not fast, not slow. Some might say I was reckless, but the truth is, I was simply used to it. 30 years at the market had shown me plenty of deceit. Nothing could rattle me anymore. I whispered under my breath, the same line I often joked with customers, to outsmart this old lady. "Dear, you'd have to wake up very early." Vanessa turned around and walked back into the house. I managed to slip away from the window and quietly sat down in the rocking chair. My heart stayed calm, but my mind was lit up as brightly as a marketplace at noon. I heard the door lock, the soft click of heels against the floor. A moment later, Vanessa's bedroom door closed. Silence returned. I leaned back in the chair, gazing at the ceiling. A memory flooded in. Years ago, some neighbor women tried to trick me. Once, they pretended to buy an entire sack of rice. I was thrilled, thinking I'd make a big profit. They asked me to turn around and weigh it properly. While my back was turned, another slipped away to bags of flour. I noticed. Of course, my eyes caught the quick movement, but I didn't raise a fuss. I just smiled, handed over the rice, and let them leave. The next day, I spread word around the market that the flour sold then had gone moldy, causing stomachaches. Those women panicked, rushed back to return it, and I got my goods back without losing a cent. From then on, they feared me. Thinking back, I let out a soft laugh. Perhaps this time is the same. Instead of flour, they want to take this house. But the lesson remains. Anyone who thinks they can outwit me will end up tripping over themselves. I stood up and slowly made my way to my room. Passing through the dark hallway, I glanced into the mirror. My hair had gone gray in many places, but the eyes staring back were unchanged, bright, alert, with a hint of mischief. I murmured, "Yes, this game looks like it will be interesting." Then I switched off the light. But in my mind, the image of that envelope still glimmered, as if daring me. And I knew it would be the key that unlocked the storms to come. In life, too much of anything turns into a burden. Too much sweetness rots your teeth. Too much spice chokes your throat. And too much worry makes you itch all over. Honestly, if Vanessa fussed over me anymore, I'd have to hang a sign round my neck. I'm still breathing. No need for emergency care. Ever since that night I saw her exchanging an envelope at the gate, Vanessa had changed tactics. No more showing off fancy meals to score points with Michael. Instead, she shifted to smothering me with excessive care. Every morning I'm used to making my own cup of coffee, sipping it while listening to the radio. But now, the moment I touched the coffee pot, Vanessa would rush over. "Mom, let me do it. Coffee isn't good for older people." I burst out laughing. "My dear, I spent 30 years selling at the market, drinking coffee like plain water. Without it, I'd have collapsed back in 1985. Vanessa forced a smile. "I just worry about you. Too much coffee is bad for the heart." I took a slow sip and replied, "My heart's still beating strong thanks to coffee. If I quit, then my heart would go haywire." She stayed silent, but her eyes narrowed slightly. I noticed, but pretended I didn't, and went on enjoying my drink. And that wasn't all. Every time I stepped into the backyard to water the plants, Vanessa would dash after me. "Mom, let me do it. At your age, bending too much isn't good. What if you get dizzy and fall?" I laughed loudly. Fall? I once stood in the rain for 12 straight hours selling at the market ankle deep in water, and didn't fall once. "You think a few flower pots are going to knock me down?" Vanessa feigned admiration. "You really are amazing. But times are different now. Elderly people should live somewhere with doctors around. It's safer, easier for care." I threw myself back in the chair, laughing until I wheezed. Oh dear, a nursing home? By the time they figured out which medicine to hand me, I'd already be out the door barefoot. Have you forgotten how I used to bargain with customers? Before they could even open their mouths, I'd already cut the price. What nursing home could keep up with me? That day, Claire, my daughter, happened to drop by. Hearing that, she nearly choked on her water. She looked at me and laughed until she bent double. "Mom, after you said that, no one will dare take you to a nursing home ever again." I blinked playfully. Exactly. The fewer who dare, the better. Vanessa only gave a stiff smile, then turned her back into the kitchen. That afternoon, Michael called on video. Vanessa eagerly brought the phone over to me. On the screen, my son was still buried in work, wearing headphones, glancing at documents while speaking. Vanessa took the chance. "Darling, I really worry about Mom. She keeps working around, never resting. At her age, I think a nursing home would be more convenient, with proper medical care." I sat nearby, frowning in mock annoyance. "Hey now, I can hear every word. Son, I used to sell in the open market 12 hours straight through rain and shine. What nursing home could keep up with my pace?" Michael laughed, waving his hand. "Mom, you're joking again. Vanessa only worries about you." I smiled. "Yes, she worries so much it feels suffocating." Michael nodded, not thinking further, and turned back to his documents. I sighed. My son's so clever in the outside world, yet so clueless at home. But I wasn't in a hurry. Selling had taught me this. A customer may talk 1,000 words, but one small action is enough to show their true intentions. That evening, I went to the kitchen for some water. The light was still on, the dining table cleared spotless. Yet right in the middle of the table lay a colorful brochure. I stepped closer and picked it up. On it was the picture of an elderly woman with silver hair, grinning in a rocking chair inside a spotless room. The bold caption read, "Green Valley Nursing Home, a safe haven for seniors." I burst out laughing. Holding up the paper, I gave it a little shake. Oh yes, convenient indeed. Convenient for whom? I don't know, but certainly not for me. I set the brochure back on the table, shaking my head. Then I turned off the light and headed to my room. Inside, I was already certain of one thing. This sweetness wasn't meant for me, it was meant for the house I was sitting in. Some people think that hiding things in the dark keeps them safe, but in the eyes of someone seasoned, those things shine brighter than ever. Vanessa hasn't quite learned that yet. She's clever, always pretending to be thoughtful and caring toward me. But the more she pretends, the more cracks she shows. I've known that type since my market days. The customers who put on the most sincere face were always the ones I watched the closest. That day, I was tidying up the hallway cabinet. I usually kept tablecloths, a few old raincoats, and a mountain of plastic bags in their bags that seemed to multiply on their own. I opened the cabinet door, reaching for a bag to carry vegetables, when I heard soft footsteps behind me. Turning around, I saw Vanessa holding a stiff cardboard box, the kind used for office files. She stiffened slightly when she saw me there. "Mom, I was just going to put some of Michael's documents in this cabinet to keep things neat," she said with a smile on her lips, though her eyes darted away. I nodded, pretending not to notice. "Sure, put it in. This cabinet can hold plenty. Back in the day, I even stuffed a whole small sack of rice in there." Vanessa gave a strained laugh, placed the box on the bottom shelf, and locked it with a little silver padlock. She acted casual, but I found it odd. In all the years I'd lived in this house, I'd never once needed to lock that old cabinet. It only held trivial things. What was so valuable that it needed a lock? After she left, I crouched down and inspected the lock. I chuckled. This kind was cheap. You could open it with nothing more than a bent paperclip. To be honest, some of the sneaky customers I'd seen back in the market were far more skillful. One woman once picked the lock on my stall with just a hairpin. I watched closely, learned the trick, and later used it myself on my own cabinet when I forgot the key. That evening, sitting in my rocking chair, listening to the tick-tock of the pendulum clock, my mind kept circling back to that box. 30 years of selling had taught me, whatever is hidden with such care must be worth a look. I decided to wait for the right moment. The chance came sooner than I expected. The next day, Vanessa went to the supermarket, and Michael was still away on business. I grabbed a paperclip, bent it, and slid it into the lock. In just a second's click, the lock popped open. I burst out laughing. Oh my, with a lock like this, who's it supposed to keep out? Even a child could open it. I pulled the box out, set it on the table, and lifted the lid. Inside was a thick stack of files, photocopies mixed with drafts. I flipped through the pages. My eyes froze at a bold line of text. Contract for transfer of property ownership. I drew a deep breath. Exactly as I suspected. This house, the place I've lived my whole life, where I raised my son into a man, was now caught in my daughter-in-law's schemes. I turned another page, and there it was. My name printed clearly on each sheet, Helen Walker. The signature line was still blank, but the empty space left waiting at the bottom of the page sent a chill down my spine. A familiar scene flashed in my mind. Years ago, a regular customer once tried to trick me. He handed me something to sign, calling it a receipt of goods. But in fact, it was a paper confirming he had already paid. If I hadn't been sharp enough to read it carefully, I would have lost everything. That time, I was lucky. I noticed the faint blur of the ink stamp and knew something was off. I didn't sign. Instead, I pretended to be clueless. Wait, let me wipe my hands first. While he was distracted, I swapped his paper with a blank sheet. And just like that, the con evaporated into thin air. Now, I realized I was standing before a similar trick, only on a much larger scale. I kept flipping through the files. Tucked in the middle was a handwritten note in blue ink. The writing was neat, and I recognized it instantly as Vanessa's. It said, "Wait for Mom to sign. Use gentle persuasion." I held the note, feeling both sad and amused. Sad because she thought of me as some naive child who could be easily coaxed. Amused because she had no idea I'd spent decades persuading customers. Everyone thought they could fool me with sweet words, yet in the end, I was always the one coaxing them. I whispered, "My dear, if you want to sell something big, you'd better know your customer's a market veteran. This old lady doesn't buy so easily." I stacked the documents back neatly, returned them to the box, and locked it carefully, just as before. But I slipped that little note into my pocket. That would be my proof. That evening, Vanessa came home and found me sipping tea. She smiled. "Mom, weren't you bored staying home today?" I took a slow sip, replying casually, "Not bored at all. I've got a new game to play." Vanessa tilted her head. "What game is that?" I smiled faintly. "The game of guessing who thinks I'm the easiest to fool in this house." She let out a stiff laugh, then quickly changed the subject. I watched her, calm on the outside, but with a spark in my eyes. I knew for certain the real bargaining match had begun. At my age, I thought all those little improvements around the house had ended the day Robert, my husband, passed away. Back when he was alive, whenever he had free time, he would tinker with something. Sometimes the door hinge, sometimes the sink, sometimes even a perfectly fine light switch. He called it improvement. I called it making trouble. And now, those games had returned, only this time the one playing wasn't my husband, but my daughter-in-law. That morning, I was about to step outside to get the newspaper. As I turned the front doorknob, I was startled. The lock wouldn't budge. I tried again. Nothing. I frowned and tried the key. The old key no longer fit. Just as I was still fiddling, Vanessa walked out from the kitchen, smiling brightly. "Mom, I changed the front door lock. The old one was too easy to open, dangerous for you when you're home alone." I turned to her, smiling thinly. "Yes, dangerous indeed. Especially dangerous for me, since now I've become a stranger in my own house." Vanessa giggled, feigning innocence. "Oh, Mom, I only wanted to keep you safe." I said nothing more, but in my heart I thought, safe for whom isn't clear yet, but it certainly isn't for me. That same afternoon, I discovered another improvement. When I walked into my room, I saw my suitcase and clothes had been moved to the small room at the end of the hallway. The room I once used for storage had now become my new bedroom. A rickety single bed, a tiny window, just enough light filtering in to reveal the cobwebs on the ceiling. I stood at the doorway, staring at the room, then burst out laughing. Vanessa poked her head in from the living room, pretending to be startled. "Mom, I moved your things here for convenience. Your old room was too big. Living there alone must feel lonely. This smaller room is cozier." I put my hands on my hips, my tone dripping with sarcasm. "Yes, cozy indeed. Cozy like a storage closet. And as for the spirit part, well, maybe for me later on." Vanessa froze for a beat, then forced a smile. "Oh, Mom, you're so funny." That night, Michael called from his hotel. The moment her husband appeared on screen, Vanessa put on her worried face. "Honey, I'm so concerned about Mom. She keeps looking tired, never resting. I thought moving her into a smaller room would help, fewer stairs for her to climb." Michael turned the camera toward me, his eyes flickering with worry. "Mom, are you all right?" I was sipping tea leisurely and answered, "Of course, son. If I'm tired, it's only from cleaning up after all these so-called improvements no one asked for. An old lady like me can't keep up with your wife's pace." Michael laughed, thinking I was joking. "Mom, you always crack jokes." Vanessa laughed too, but I noticed her hand clutching the glass so tightly her knuckles turned white. After the call, I returned to my new room. I opened the drawer to get a towel and noticed a crumpled piece of paper in the trash bin beside the bed. Old habits die hard. Back when I sold at the market, I always looked through the trash customers left behind to see what they were really thinking. Some pretended to browse, but their bags of trash were full of receipts from other stalls. That's how I knew who was just window shopping and who was actually buying. I picked up the paper, smoothed it flat, My heart tightened a little. It was a photocopy bearing a forged signature of my name, Helen Walker. The handwriting was stiff, awkwardly imitating mine, but I spotted it instantly. The curve of the H was too round, and the K was missing a stroke. I sat down on the bed, staring at the paper, then burst out laughing. I whispered, "Well, not bad. But my dear, forging my signature is like trying to sell rotten fish to a woman who's spent 30 years in the market. The smell gives it away immediately." I folded the paper and slipped it into my pocket. That was my second piece of evidence. This bargaining match was clearly going to be long, but bargaining is what I do best, and I've never lost a deal in my life. I once thought Vanessa would change her tactics after the room switch and the lock replacement, but clearly, I underestimated her acting skills. This girl could compete for an Oscar Best Supporting Actress in the role of a virtuous daughter-in-law. That morning, I had barely opened my eyes when I heard a soft knock at the door. Before I could answer, the door creaked open, and Vanessa walked in carrying a small tray. On it sat a steaming bowl of porridge, a glass of orange juice, and a sheet of paper filled with scribbles. "Mom, I brought you breakfast," she said, her voice so sweet it could make a honeybee jealous. I sat up, looked at the tray, then laughed. "Oh my, this looks like a hospital room. All that's missing is a doctor and a blood pressure monitor." Vanessa didn't laugh. She pulled a chair up beside the bed, set the tray on the table, then carefully unfolded the paper. I glanced at it. A medicine schedule, hours written neatly from morning to night. I nearly burst out laughing. "Mom, these are supplements I bought for you. If you take them on time, they'll help your heart and blood pressure." I even wrote everything down. "Just follow this schedule." I raised an eyebrow, my tone sly. "Thanks, but I'm used to selling supplements, not swallowing them blindly." Once, a customer insisted on buying vitamins without reading the instructions. He took them, got a stomachache, and ran laps around the market. I had to give him his money back. Almost lost a regular. So don't expect me to take anything before I read every single ingredient. Vanessa stiffened for a moment, then quickly forced a smile. "Oh, Mom, these are just vitamins. Completely safe." I rested my chin on my hand, staring at her. "Vitamins are fine. But me, I put more faith in stir-fried morning glory with garlic. Tasty, healthy, cheap, and guaranteed not to make me senile." She gave a tight laugh and nudged the porridge closer. "Come on, Mom, have some porridge. I made it especially for you." I tasted a spoonful and nodded. Not bad. Just make sure you don't add any secret spices. Surprises don't sit well with me." The words sounded casual, but I saw Vanessa's hand tighten slightly. She forced her smile, gathered up the paper, and said in her ever-gentle tone, "I only worry about you, Mom." I watched her leave, thinking to myself, worry about me, or about that contract locked away in the cabinet? That afternoon, Claire, my daughter, came by. She pushed open the door, carrying a huge paper bag in her hands. "Mom, I brought some of the apple pies you like," she said, setting it on the table and kissing my cheek. Vanessa poked her head out from the kitchen, her smile sweet as honey. "Oh, Claire's here. How thoughtful of you, bringing pies." Claire gave a polite smile in return, but her eyes were different. I call it the wolf looking at lamb gaze. Gentle enough on the surface, but underneath was caution, like she had already caught the scent of something off from afar. "You bought so much, we two could never finish it all," I joked. "Maybe I'll save the rest for when I move into a nursing home. Then I'll have something to treat my friends with." Claire burst out laughing, while Vanessa froze for a second. I caught the quick press of her lips before she put her smile back on as we sat enjoying the pie. Emily, my 12-year-old granddaughter, came running in. The child is always buzzing about, mouth going a mile a minute. She ran up to hug me, then chirped excitedly, "Grandma, guess what? Auntie Vanessa said this house is going to be hers soon." The room fell silent for a beat. I set my slice of pie down on the plate and turned to look at Vanessa. Her smile twisted awkwardly, her face shifting from pink to pale. "Oh, children, you know. They just babble nonsense," Vanessa stammered, her voice sickly sweet, almost too sharp. Claire raised an eyebrow and shot Vanessa a long glance. I knew that look. It was sharp as a butcher's knife. I broke the tension with a laugh. "Kids, when they speak, it's often truer than adults, because they haven't yet learned how to lie as well as certain people here." Emily blinked innocently. "But I didn't lie, Grandma." I really heard her say that. I patted her head gently. "Yes, I know you didn't lie." Vanessa hurried to her feet, hands trembling as she gathered the plates, her words tumbling out. "I'll just go tidy the kitchen. The peas to sweet children shouldn't eat too much." She vanished into the kitchen, leaving behind a heavy silence. Claire leaned toward me, whispering just loud enough for me to hear. "Mom, this doesn't feel right. The way she's acting." I nodded slightly, replying in a low, sarcastic murmur. "Yes, not right at all. But remember, dear old Ginger is always spicier. Leave it to me." I sipped my tea, smiling as if nothing had happened. Inside, I knew Vanessa's mask of virtue had begun to crack, and from the mouth of a child, the truth had already started to slip through. If there were a contest for forced smiles, that day Vanessa would have won first place. The moment Emily blurted out her words, Vanessa's face drained of color. But in a heartbeat she yanked her lips into a grin. A stiff, crooked grin like a slice of apple pie burnt at the edges. "Oh, children." Vanessa raised her voice, glancing at me then at Claire. The girl just misheard. "I said this house feels cozy, not that it's mine." Claire sat with arms crossed, her gaze sharp as a razor, not bothering to reply. I leisurely sipped my tea and smirked. Yes, children do often get things mixed up, but children rarely lie unless they've been taught very well. The moment those words left my mouth, I saw Vanessa swallow hard. Her smile stayed, but her eyes darted. I pretended not to notice, broke off another piece of pie, and ate with relish. Just then, Michael's phone call came through. His voice rushed out. "I have to fly to Chicago. Urgent meeting. I can't talk long. Honey, take care of Mom for me." Vanessa answered instantly, her voice dripping with affection. "Don't worry. I'll look after Mom as if she were my own mother." I curled my lips in a silent thought. Yes, let's just hope it's not the kind of care that clears the path for that property contract. Out loud, I said calmly, "I'm fine, son. You just focus on work. As for me, I've got enough entertainment here. I won't be lonely." Michael chuckled, unsuspecting, and hung up. The room returned to stillness. Vanessa exhaled, but I saw her hand tremble slightly as she picked up her glass. Claire tilted her head, looking at her as if to say, "You really think you're fooling anyone?" I propped my chin on my hand, continuing casually, "Actually, I love listening to children. They don't calculate, they don't scheme. They say whatever's on their mind. Quite different from us adults. Isn't that right, Vanessa?" She forced a crooked grin, nodding rapidly. Yes, that's true, Mom." Inside, I laughed. That awkward smile I'd seen it hundreds of times at the market. And usually, right after that smile came a trick just waiting to spring loose. Just as the tension in the room was pulled tight like a string, there was a knock at the door. I stood up to open it, and there was Mr. Haynes, the longtime neighbor, carrying a basket of bright red tomatoes. He stepped in, chuckling heartily. "Mrs. Helen, I brought you some freshly picked tomatoes. Homegrown ones taste sweeter than anything from the store, guaranteed better than the supermarket," Mr. Haynes said. I burst out laughing. "Mr. Haynes, if you keep bragging about your tomatoes, I'll have to start charging you for advertising." He set the basket down, glanced around the table, then squinted at Vanessa. "Oh, looks lively in here today." Vanessa quickly smiled, her voice dripping with sugar. "Yes, I'm here to take care of Mother Helen. Family feels happiest when it's together. Mr. Haynes put his hands on his hips and chuckled. Then, without warning, he dropped a line that made me want to applaud. I've been selling for 20 years. Only fake customers smile that awkwardly. The room froze for half a second. Claire coughed to cover her laughter. I bent down to pour more tea, lips pressed tight to keep from bursting out loud. Vanessa sat stiff, her smile frozen, as if the winter wind had blown it solid. She stammered, "Oh, you must be joking." Mr. Haynes plopped into a chair, grabbed a tomato, and bit into it with a crunch. I'm too old to joke much. I can tell straight away if someone's being real or fake. A person either smiles with their mouth or with their eyes. It's easy to see. Claire turned to me, her eyes sparkling as if to say, "See? You're not the only one who noticed." I nodded leisurely, sipped my tea, and said offhandedly, "Exactly. A fake customer can only fool someone who's never sold a thing. But for folks like me and Mr. Haynes who've weighed and counted every penny, it's a lot harder." Vanessa tried to force another smile, but her lips trembled. Beneath the table, I saw her hand clenched tight into a fist, knuckles white. Inside, I cheered silently. The mask has cracked now. It's only a matter of time before it shatters. I knew it was only a matter of time before Vanessa made her move. The photocopied papers in the trash, the locked box of files in the cabinet, all just preludes. And then, one fine morning, she decided to play big. That morning, I was sitting on the porch, sipping tea while admiring my geranium pots, when Vanessa appeared. In her hands was a neatly clipped stack of papers, her face beaming like a flower. "Mom," she called sweetly, "I need just a little help. This is only an insurance form. It needs your signature for confirmation. Please sign for me?" I looked up and smiled faintly. Inside, I thought, finally showing your hand. But on the outside, I feigned confusion. "Insurance, huh? Oh dear, those documents are complicated. I'm old now, the writing is all squiggly. I can't read much of it." "It's fine, Mom," Vanessa chirped, placing the stack into my hands. "It's just a few spots. I've marked them all, just sign where I highlighted." I slowly pulled out my old reading glasses from my pocket and put them on. These glasses had been with me since my market days, the ones I used to check every number in my debt ledger. I opened the folder, turning page by page, my eyes gliding over the dense printed text. Oh my, so many words. I sighed, dragging my voice. "This line says, Party A agrees." "Who's Party A, you?" Vanessa pressed her lips together, forcing a smile. "No need to read it all, Mom. It's just procedure." I shook my head and flipped to another page. "And this part. Party B commits." "Who's Party B, me? Why do I have to commit to so many things?" She began to lose patience. I saw her fingers tapping on the table, her eyes flicking to the clock. Meanwhile, I sat there as relaxed as if I were reading a restaurant menu. Oh heavens. This line is so tiny, my eyes can't make it out. "Read it for me, will you?" Vanessa inhaled sharply and began to read, but her voice was low, hurried. I pretended to frown. Wait, read that bit again. "Transfer full rights." Why does that sound so familiar? Isn't that like those property transfer papers, dear? For a split second, Vanessa's face went pale, but she quickly forced out a laugh. "Oh Mom, you're overthinking. It's just legal jargon." I set the pen down on the table, propped my chin in my hand, and mused aloud. Back when I sold at the market, customers always said it's just procedure. And every time, it turned out to be a trap. I may be old, but my memory hasn't faded enough to forget those tricks. I twirled the pen in my hand, pretending to fumble. Across from me, Vanessa's eyes clung to the signature line like a cat watching a mouse. "Well then," I said slowly, "I'll sign, but let me fetch my old market ledger to steady the paper. This table's too slick." I stood up and pulled from the drawer my old, frayed ledger. That book had followed me through all my years in the market. Its pages were yellowed, the ink smudged. But to me it was worth far more than any official document. I placed the stack of papers in the middle, pretending to lower my pen. Oh dear, my hands trembling. I chuckled. Maybe I should rest a bit before signing. While Vanessa bent down to pour me a glass of water, I quickly slipped the papers inside the ledger, flipping through a few debt pages to hide them completely. By the time she looked up, only the closed ledger lay on the table. My hands shaky. Let me sign later, I said evenly, then picked up the book and walked out of the room. Vanessa froze, her eyes following me, but she didn't dare say a word. That evening, I sat in my room and opened the ledger. Between the old debt notes, the printed words peeked out. Just as I suspected, clauses written clear as day about transfer, new owner, and of course, the former owner's name was none other than mine. I smiled and murmured to myself, "My dear, trying to trick an old market woman with forged signatures is like weighing fish with a basket full of holes. The water leaks out, the truth shows immediately." I folded the ledger shut and slipped it under my pillow. The comfort it gave me was like keeping a safe at arm's reach. The next morning, Vanessa darted around the house in a panic. I sat calmly on the porch, shelling peanuts. "Mom, did you see the papers I left on the table yesterday?" she asked, her voice strained. I looked up, feigning innocence. "Papers? Oh, those scribbly sheets. I thought they were scrap. So I took them to the market yesterday to wrap fish." "Wrap fish?" Vanessa froze, her face going pale. I nodded, smiling kindly. "Yes, people at the market always need paper for wrapping. I guess it was just habit. You know me, after all these years selling, whenever I see loose paper, I gather it up without thinking." Vanessa pressed her lips together, her smile stiff as stone. I looked straight into her eyes, tossing another peanut into my mouth and chewing noisily inside. I cheered quietly. Round one, old mother scores the win. I've always believed one thing. When tricksters see their signature scheme fail, they'll surely try another path. And I wasn't wrong. Just a few days later, Vanessa staged a brand new performance, and sadly for her, the props this time were soaking wet. That morning, I went down to the kitchen for the kettle. As soon as my foot touched the last steps of the stairs, I heard a faint splattering sound. Near the bottom, I saw it. The entire stretch of floor by the kitchen doorway was slick with water, as if someone had splashed out a whole basin. Sunlight slanted across it, making the surface gleam like polished marble. I nearly slipped as I stepped forward, my body jerking back, one hand clutching a chair for balance, my heart skipping a beat. Just then, Vanessa came rushing in from the living room, crying out dramatically, "Oh my goodness, Mom, careful, the floor's so slippery. Let me clean it up for you." She hurried over with a rag in hand, her face wearing both alarm and something rehearsed. I narrowed my eyes. My years in the market had taught me, when a customer looks overly concerned, it's usually because they were the ones who caused the problem in the first place. I straightened up, brushed my hands off, and burst out laughing. "My dear, if I had fallen so easily, I would have gone bankrupt 40 years ago. Back then, my fish stall floor was slicker and stinkier than this. Yet I still stood steady enough to sell a whole 100 kilos of fish." The moment I finished, Claire, who happened to be stepping through the door, snickered out loud. Vanessa's face stiffened. She forced a smile and stammered, "Why, yes, thank goodness you're all right." I placed my hands on my hips, tilting my head, my tone sharp with irony. "Lucky indeed. Otherwise, you'd probably say I shouldn't live alone in this house. Isn't that right?" For a split second, Vanessa's eyes flickered, but she quickly bent down to wipe the floor, her voice soft and meek. "I only worry about your safety, Mom." I said nothing, but inside, I chuckled. Another trick and another failure. Not even an hour later, the phone rang. Michael was calling from the airport. The moment his face appeared on screen, Vanessa put on her act, her voice trembling as though she had just survived a nightmare. "Darling, Mom nearly fell this morning. I was so scared. Luckily, I ran over in time. Otherwise." Michael's eyes widened. "Mom, is that true?" I calmly sipped my tea and replied evenly, "Yes, I almost slipped. But you know me, son. I used to stand on fish stall floors slick as grease and still sold all day. This is nothing." Michael frowned, but Vanessa jumped in right away. "Darling, that's just like Mom. Always careless. I'm so worried. If this keeps up." I cut her off, my tone dry with sarcasm. "Son, if I ever do fall, the papers will run the headline. 68-year-old woman falls but still closes the deal. At least then I'd be more famous than you at work." Claire, sitting nearby, burst into giggles, nearly choking on her drink. Michael sighed. "Mom, you always joke. But Vanessa's right. You should be more careful." I nodded, smiling sweetly. "Of course. I'll be careful. But don't worry, I'm not so easy to knock down. I've still got plenty of games left to play." Michael chuckled, reassured, and hung up. Vanessa set the phone on the table, her lips frozen into that pasted-on smile. I casually picked up a slice of apple pie and ate, as if nothing at all had happened. After the call ended, Claire quietly slipped into the kitchen. A moment later she returned, carrying a half-full aluminum basin, still dripping wet. She set it down in front of me, her voice half mocking, half firm. "Mom, this basin's still half full and it was sitting in the corner by the table, nowhere near the sink. Doesn't look like anyone accidentally spilled it." I glanced at Vanessa. Her face flickered pale for an instant before she bent her head quickly, pretending to wipe the table, not daring to meet my eyes. I laughed, speaking loud enough for all to hear. "Yes, very strange indeed. A basin of water jumping onto the floor by itself must be a ghost movie. Anyway, lucky I didn't fall. They say when an old market woman falls, only the prices drop, not her body." Claire snorted with laughter, while Vanessa's hands clenched the rag so tightly her knuckles turned white. Inside, I knew for certain. Yet another staged performance had flopped, and that painted mask of hers had cracked one line deeper. If anyone thinks drama only happens on a stage, they've never lived with a scheming daughter-in-law like Vanessa. She'd turned this kitchen into her private theater, and poor Michael, always busy, was the faithful audience from afar. Every evening when Michael called, Vanessa became the devoted wife. I wanted to clap for how well she learned her lines. "Darling, today she ate half a bowl of porridge. I'm so happy," she would coo, glancing at me to make sure I'd heard. I sat by the window pretending to read the paper. While my eyes tracked every little movement, she tilted her head, smiled gently, voice trembling as if she'd spent the whole day worrying about my health. Michael replied, tired but trusting, "You're doing great. I feel at ease with you there with Mom." Vanessa sighed theatrically. "You don't know she keeps doing little chores. I have to remind her all the time. Old people can be stubborn, but I'll be patient." I smiled inwardly. Stubborn old woman? True enough, but unlucky for her. I'm not the sort to be sweet-talked into obedience. I've bargained with sly customers until they shook their heads and left, then came back the next day. Compared to them, Vanessa was just an apprentice. I stayed silent, letting the call play out. It's the best way to watch a performance without interrupting the actor. But in my head I kept score. Forced smile to 6 points, trembling voice -7 points, shifty eyes to 2 points. Verdict: Vanessa's dutiful wife act might fool a busy man, but it wouldn't fool an old market seller like me. I decided I was tired of letting Vanessa perform solo. Sellers know a trick. Sometimes you drop a little false rumor, and the customers reveal themselves. So I added a pinch of seasoning to the show. While making tea that afternoon, I let slip to the room, "I wonder if Mr. Haynes is thinking of selling the vacant lot beside his house. If he does, maybe I'll buy it and open a little stall, something to keep me busy in my old age." Vanessa flinched, nearly dropping her cup. Her smile went stiff, voice faltering. Oh, Mom, at your age, who'd be selling stuff? You'd only tire yourself. You should rest and enjoy yourself. I merely smiled and sipped my tea. Internally, I marked it down. Yes, she's afraid I'll cling to this house. The next day, I tried another tactic. At dinner, I muttered as if to myself. Today, Claire said her friend who's a lawyer is very good. Maybe tomorrow I'll ask them to check our house documents. Vanessa froze, holding her breath, her spoon clattering into the bowl. She forced a laugh, fumbling for a fix. Oh, no need for a lawyer. Our home is fine, no trouble at all. I rested my chin on my hand and looked straight at her. Yes, our home is fine. The only question is who around here thinks otherwise? She swallowed hard, fingers twisting the tablecloth. I knew then my little rumor had struck the right chord. Then one night, thinking I was asleep, I heard Vanessa muttering in the kitchen, her voice low but clear enough. As long as she leaves, everything will fall into place. I cracked my eyes open, stifling a laugh. In the dark, I whispered to myself, my dear, I've spent 30 years in the market. I can hear the whispers of fake customers louder than real hawkers' cries. You may act well, but I'm still the toughest audience you'll ever face. I often joked with Claire. We old folks have a superpower, insomnia, right on schedule. That night, I decided to put that superpower to use. I tossed and turned for show, then quietly slipped out of my room. The clock was close to midnight. The house was dark, except for a faint glow spilling from the kitchen. Barefoot, I crept along slowly, like I was playing Emily's treasure hunt game. A rattling noise hummed not from the fridge, but from the printer I'd left untouched for over a year. I squinted, hiding behind the door frame in the kitchen. Vanessa sat at the table, one hand flicking across her phone, the other collecting freshly printed sheets. Her face was tense, none of the sugary sweetness she wore by day. I tilted my head, listening. Yes, Daniel, stay calm. I've got it handled. Once she signs, everything will be ours. No, not yet. Not yet. She's tougher than I thought. I nearly burst out laughing. Tougher than she thought. Exactly, my dear. I'm sticky taffy, not a sugar cube. Bite all you want. I don't dissolve. Vanessa hung up, bundled the papers, and stuffed them into a large envelope. The printer clattered out more sheets, contracts, words like transfer, authorization. I quietly stepped back, then strolled in, yawning loudly. Well now, who's running a print shop at midnight? That buzzing made me think the fish market had opened a night shift. Vanessa jumped, her face drained of color. She forced a shaky smile, shoving the bundle behind her back. Mom, I was just printing a few documents for Michael. I put my hands on my hips, half joking, half serious though. Documents for my son that require calling Daniel? Or has Michael changed his name without telling me? Her mouth clamped shut, the fake smile frozen stiff. Back in my market days, I had a quirky habit, jotting notes while muttering into a tiny recorder, part reminder, part insurance against arguments. I still kept that old recorder in my drawer, though nobody uses such things now. And tonight, before I stepped into the kitchen, instinct had told me to slip it into my pocket. When I saw Vanessa fumbling, hiding those papers, I smiled and quietly flicked the switch rec. The click was soft, drowned out by the printer's clatter, feigning innocence. I sat at the table, scratching my head. My dear, printing at this hour wastes electricity. Or are you planning to run a late-night photocopy shop for extra cash? Vanessa chuckled awkwardly, fumbling. No, Mom, just a few work papers. I rested my chin in my hand, my voice stretching slyly. A few papers. And yet you need Daniel's help? Last I checked, Daniel doesn't work for any insurance company. Her face went ghost pale, her eyes darting like a trapped bird looking for a way out. I slowly sipped a mouthful of cold tea, silently counting the beats in my head. 1, 2, 3. And just as I expected, she began to mutter under her breath, "She's such a nuisance. So stubborn. If only she'd sign and be done with it. Tomorrow this house would already be ours." I kept the same faint smile on my face, but in my pocket my fingers brushed the recorder. The tiny red light blinked steadily, as if nodding along with me. Inside, I thought, "That's enough. You've spoken the words yourself stronger than any document, and tomorrow, this whisper will be my weapon." I've never been one to flaunt trophies, but this time was different. I knew I couldn't keep it all to myself, not when the one across from me was growing bolder by the day. So the next morning, I called Claire into my room and locked the door. "Daughter, I've got something to show you." From my drawer, I pulled out my old market ledger. Between its yellowed pages lay the stack of documents Vanessa had tried to trick me into signing. I also took from my pocket the little note scrawled in her handwriting. "Wait for her signature. Use gentle persuasion." And finally, I set the tiny recorder on the table and pressed play. Vanessa's voice spilled out, low but clear. "As soon as she leaves, everything will go smoothly. Tomorrow, the house will be ours." Claire sat frozen for a few seconds. Then she looked up, her eyes blazing. "I knew it. I've suspected all along. Now we have proof. Mom, we have to show this to Michael." I nodded calmly. "Yes, but not all at once. A seller who lays out all her goods immediately only scares the customer off. We'll give it piece by piece so there's no escape." Claire pressed her lips together and nodded. She understood me perfectly. Just then, Emily skipped in, phone in hand, her face bright with excitement. "Grandma, look, I took a picture of Aunt Vanessa yesterday. She was with Uncle Daniel and they were holding hands." Claire and I both leaned in. There on the screen, plain as day, Vanessa and Daniel stood close together, smiling like carefree lovers. Not the slightest hint of caution. I laughed out loud. Well now, heaven itself is adding seasoning to this dish. And to think our sweet little girl turned into an accidental photographer. Claire squeezed my hand and whispered, "Mom, the pieces are falling into place. Once we fit them together, Michael will see the whole picture." I looked out the window, where the morning sun streamed in. Inside, I thought, the final act isn't here yet, but the stage is already shaking. We didn't take long to decide which piece to show Michael first. That evening, when he called on video, I stayed quiet and let Claire hold the phone. "Brother," Claire began evenly, "I happened to see Vanessa with a man in town. Emily even took a photo. I'll send it to you." Michael frowned slightly. He was silent for a moment, then forced a smile. "It's probably just a colleague. Vanessa often meets business partners." Claire didn't argue. She only said, "Just look at the photo yourself. Then decide." I sat beside her, sipping my tea slowly, not adding a word. The market had taught me, never push the customer, just hand them a sample, and they'll decide on their own. 2 days later, I dropped another seed. At dinner, I sighed as if absent-minded. Lately I've been so forgetful. I keep hearing the printer at midnight, and whispers saying, "Tomorrow, this house will be ours." I don't know if my ears are failing me or if I've just been dreaming. As soon as the words left my mouth, I glanced up. Michael froze mid-bite, startled. Vanessa let out a strained laugh, rushing in. "Oh, Mom must have misheard. She's been losing sleep and imagining things." Michael said nothing. He quietly reached for more vegetables, but I caught the flicker in his eyes, like someone quietly piecing a puzzle together. That night, he called me privately. His voice was soft but heavy. "Mom, did you really hear that? I don't want to wrongly accuse my wife." I sat still, exhaled slowly, then answered in just a few words. "You don't have to believe me. Just watch your wife more closely." I set the phone down after that. Inside, waves churned in my chest, but on my face, I kept the same calm smile. because I knew the seed of doubt had been planted now. It was only a matter of waiting for it to sprout. For months, Vanessa believed she was the one steering the game. But an old market seller like me knows, the more a customer thinks they're clever, the easier they are to trap when they see what looks like a bargain. That night, I prepared my move. I took a few blank sheets, clipped and pasted some lines from old newspapers, and fashioned a contract. From a distance it looked real enough. I left the signature line blank and slipped on a green cover to give it that official touch. The next morning, while Vanessa was brewing coffee, I came down with the bundle in hand, muttering to myself, "Oh dear, my eyes blur so badly these days. Good thing I have a capable daughter-in-law, maybe she can check these for me." Vanessa's eyes lit up, quick as a cat spotting fish. Wiping her hands on a towel, she stepped closer, her voice dripping honey. "Let me take a look. All you need to do is sign, Mom. These things are simple." I feigned hesitation, slid on my reading glasses, furrowed my brow. Probably just trivial stuff. "Here, why don't you sign for me? My hands are too shaky." She waved her hands quickly. No, it only counts if you sign, Mom." And then, without another word, she pulled the bundle toward herself and scribbled her name. In less than a breath, Vanessa Carter bloomed on the blank line. She hadn't read a single line, just dove in, desperate, like someone afraid to miss out on a golden chance. I leaned back in my chair, the corner of my lips curling. There it is. The one who signs in haste is the one truly desperate. Tapping my finger on the table, I said lightly, as though impressed, "Quick indeed. I didn't even get a look before you signed. If you were this fast signing iOS at the market, I'd be rich by now." Vanessa flinched, her brow twitching before she forced a laugh. "Oh, I just wanted to help you. That's all." But I could see it clearly, her mask had cracked deeper still. Just then, the front door clicked open. Michael stepped in, suitcase still in hand, his suit wrinkled from the long flight. He barely lifted his head before spotting his wife clutching the papers. Her face caught in a flicker of panic. I sat calmly, lifting my teacup, my voice even as though this were nothing unusual. "Oh, son, you're just in time. I asked Vanessa to check some papers for me. Look, your wife's so quick. She signed without reading a single line." Michael froze, his eyes darting between me and Vanessa, his brow furrowed. "What did you just sign?" Vanessa laughed thinly, clutching the bundle to her chest. "It's nothing. Just some trivial papers. I was helping Mom." I set my teacup down and tapped the table again. "Funny, calling it trivial yet hiding it behind your back. Back at the market, only the fake customers grabbed receipts like that, like they were afraid someone might read them." Michael stepped closer, his voice hardening. "Give it here. Let me see." Vanessa staggered half a step back, her eyes darting wildly, sweat beading on her forehead. Then suddenly, she blurted out, sharp as a blade, "Don't listen to your mother, she set me up." The air froze solid. I remained perfectly still, though inside I allowed myself a quiet smile. "Ah, my dear, you've spoken the truth for me." Michael's eyes burned as he glared at his wife, his hands clenching tighter around the handle of his suitcase. As for me, I simply took another unhurried sip of tea, letting the silence itself strip the truth bare. No more explanations were needed. Vanessa's outburst, "She set me up," echoed in the kitchen like the bang of a gavel. I looked at Michael and saw his face shift, surprise into suspicion, then into bitterness. Slowly, he set his suitcase down, his voice heavy. "What did you just say, Vanessa?" She stammered, her eyes wide, clawing for escape. "No, I mean she misunderstood. I was only trying to help." Michael held out his hand firmly. "Give me the papers." Vanessa bit her lip, trembling as she handed them over. As Michael flipped through, I saw his shoulders stiffen. Those lines of text left no room for denial. I felt no triumph, no rage. I simply leaned back in my chair, watching my son, and gave a bitter smile. Son, I've sold all my life. A fraud I can spot at a glance. Not today, not yesterday. From the first moment she smiled sweet, but her eyes never joined in. I already knew. Michael closed the bundle, his gaze darkening. He looked up at his wife and gave a faint shake of his head. The silence was so deep I could hear the ticking of the wall clock. Vanessa burst into tears, dropping to her knees, clutching Michael's hand. Darling, I only wanted to secure our future. I was afraid it wouldn't be enough. I never meant any harm to your mother. I laughed hoarse, but cutting clear. No harm? And yet you prepared transfer contracts, forged my signature, staged accidents? If you'd been selling at the market, customers would have returned your goods long ago. Michael said little more. He rose to his feet, leaving the papers on the table like cold evidence. Vanessa still clung to his hand, but this time, Michael pulled free without hesitation. Please, don't leave me, she sobbed, her voice raw. But the tears were dry, unable to mask the truth any longer. I watched, not with glee, only with a dull sadness like a vendor catching a thief sneaking off with a few tomatoes. Blameworthy, yes, but somehow pitiful too. Michael turned to me. Weary? Mom, I'm sorry for not believing you sooner. I was too busy, too blind. I placed a hand on his shoulder, squeezed gently. Son, everyone gets blinded sometimes. What matters is that you see clearly now. Remember old Ginger burns sharp to remind you. Never let false sweetness cloud your eyes. Vanessa stood motionless for a long moment. Then she straightened, adjusted her coat, clinging to the last threads of dignity. Her voice came out ragged. I'll go. But one day you'll understand I did it all for us. No one answered. Her footsteps echoed across the wooden floor, and then the door slammed shut. I have lived in this house nearly a lifetime, watching it endure seasons of rain and sun, hearing both the cries of children and the quarrels of adults. And now, after all the schemes and deceit, I've realized true strength doesn't lie in deeds of transfer, nor in locks on the front door. Strength lies in the calm of someone seasoned who knows how to see through without rushing, who knows when to stay silent and when to speak. I didn't defeat Vanessa with anger, but with the wisdom of years and the patience of a mother who has weathered nearly 70 years of life's tides. Nor did I let my son drown in regret. Instead of blame, I chose to give him a lesson that sometimes the gentlest sweetness can be the most dangerous trap. And now, as I stand by the window, listening to Emily's clear laughter ringing from the garden, I feel peace settle in my heart. My dear friends, if this story has touched your heart, I invite you to leave a comment and share your thoughts or your own experiences. And don't forget to subscribe so we can continue to listen, to tell, and to live through stories together, stories that may be yours, or perhaps someone you once knew.